Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Um,
We've,
yeah.
we've gotten some really interesting stuff sent to us this time.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of research articles and even some handwritten notes.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it kind of centers around this question of human evolution
Right.
and the nature of reality.
Like,
Really big questions,
it's a fascinating collection for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Touching on things from quantum physics to,
Right.
epigenetics and even...
Yeah, and even
Very-
archaeology.
Yeah, some pretty
Like-
controversial archaeological findings.
Yeah, controversial is a good word for it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be talking about an interview with Michael Cremo,
Right.
who co-authored this book called Forbidden Archaeology.
Yeah, his work is really something else.
It is.
I mean, he's out there saying that humans have been around a lot longer than,
Right.
mainstream science
Yeah, than the accepted.
accepts.
Yeah, that's a big one right there.
Yeah.
But I think even before we get to that,
Sure.
this idea that like our beliefs shape reality,
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of the foundation of
Right.
everything else we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of
It sounds out there, but
out there, yeah.
But when you really look at it,
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
yeah. The more I read, the more
Especially-
it makes sense to me.
When you think about things like quantum physics,
Right.
like it suggests that the person observing something
Yeah.
actually plays a role in what they're seeing,
So we're not just like passive
not just passive.
observers.
Yeah.
It's more like we're participating.
We're actively creating it.
Yeah.
And
That's wild.
yeah,
That's a big one right there.
huge.
But Cremo,
Yeah.
he takes it even further.
Oh, yeah.
He uses this analogy of an anorexic person,
Right.
and they could be wasting away,
Hmm.
but they still think they're overweight.
They look in the mirror and
Yeah, and
they see something totally different.
that belief is shaping their reality.
Yeah. And not in a good way in that case.
Yeah, with some pretty,
Yeah.
dire consequences,
Yeah.
potentially.
Absolutely.
But so how does that tie into, like, the bigger picture
Well-
of human evolution?
I think it suggests that we might be limiting ourselves by the stories that we tell
Okay.
about,
Yeah.
our origins and our capabilities.
So it's not just, like,
No.
an abstract idea.
No, it's very
This is, like, how
real world.
we live our lives.
Absolutely.
All right.
And this kind of leads into
Yeah.
this whole concept of epigenetics.
Okay.
Just
Just fill me in, because
So basically it challenges this idea that genes are our destiny.
Okay.
That we're just, kind of
Chuck.
stuck
Yeah.
with what we got.
Yeah.
It says that our genes are more like a blueprint
Okay.
that can change based on our environment and even our thoughts and beliefs.
So you mentioned Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Oh, yeah. He did these amazing studies
Yeah.
with stem cells.
So
So those are the cells that can turn into any other cell in the body.
right.
And he took genetically identical stem cells and put them in different environments. And guess what?
What happened?
They turned into totally different types of cells.
Wow.
Like some became muscle cells, some bone,
Yes.
some fat cells,
And they were all
from the same DNA.
that's amazing.
Right?
So like our thoughts and beliefs,
Yeah,
if they can change our internal environment,
exactly.
that means we have a lot more control
Way more.
over our health than we thought.
Pretty amazing.
It is.
I mean, it's empowering.
yeah, it is. It
Right.
really challenges that whole
Yeah.
dog eat
The
dog.
survival of the fittest.
Yeah, survival of the fittest thing.
Yeah.
And speaking of challenging conventional thinking,
Right.
that's Cremo's hole.
That's his jam.
Yeah, that's his jam in Forbidden Archaeology.
Yeah.
What's so controversial about his work?
Well, imagine like a human skeleton
Okay.
dug up from rock
Right.
that dates back to the dinosaurs.
Okay.
That's the kind of stuff he's talking about.
Okay.
Like challenging everything we think we know
Okay.
about human origins.
So he's found
He's found all these artifacts and remains
Mhm.
that suggest humans have been around
Okay.
for millions of years longer
Wow.
than we currently think.
That's a big claim.
Yeah.
So what kind of evidence are we talking?
Like he's got
Yeah.
these amazing stories
Right.
about the California gold rush
Yeah.
and these miners
Okay.
digging tunnels thousands of feet deep
Okay.
into mountains
Mm-hmm.
and finding human skeletons, spear points,
Wow.
even mortars and pestles,
Okay.
all embedded in rock that's millions of years old,
Wow. So that's
according to geological surveys.
so like finding a smartphone
Right.
in a Roman ruin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like totally anachronistic.
So what happened?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Cremo says that mainstream science
Yeah.
has basically ignored
Right.
or dismissed
Right.
these findings
Yeah.
because they don't fit
Right.
with the current narrative.
The accepted timeline.
Yeah. He even talks about this one scientist
Yeah.
at the Smithsonian
Okay.
who just dismissed the California gold rush findings
Uh,
outright
just because
because they didn't fit
it didn't fit with...
with the accepted theory
Wow. So like,
of human evolution.
so even science,
Yeah.
with all its rigorous methods,
It's still
it can still be susceptible to bias.
your bias, absolutely.
That's a little unsettling.
It is.
I mean, it reminds me of the Piltdown Man
oh, yeah.
hoax,
Mm-hmm.
that supposed missing link.
Right.
That turned out to be a fake.
A forgery.
Yeah, and it was probably a scientist
Right.
who did it.
Who was so eager to
Yeah.
prove
Yeah.
the theory
That
they faked it.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Right.
If we can't totally trust the official story,
Yeah.
where do we go from here? How do we even begin to
Yeah.
piece together our own understanding?
Right. I mean, Cremo says we need like a healthy skepticism,
Right?
not just accepting everything we hear,
Right.
even if it sounds official.
Especially.
Like be willing to consider different perspectives.
Okay, so like
Guys.
we shouldn't just accept
Right.
everything a corporation tells us
Exactly.
in their advertising.
Why should we do that with science?
Okay, so
Right.
healthy skepticism.
Yeah.
I like
Use
saying that.
those critical thinking skills.
Right.
Be willing to question
I
things.
question everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's how progress happens.
That's how we got
Think about Galileo,
right.
Copernicus. They challenged the whole...
what everyone thought they knew.
Yeah, the accepted view of the universe.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you on that. But let's go back to Cremo's claims.
Sure.
You said he found evidence that challenges the timeline
Yeah.
of human evolution.
Oh, yeah. Tons of it.
Like what else?
Well, he talks about Mary Leakey
Okay.
finding those human footprints in Tanzania in rock that's 3.6 million years old.
Yeah, and those were like modern human
Footprints. Yeah.
which shouldn't have
It's
been
such a-
there at that time.
Traditional narrative right out of the water.
Right.
I mean, how do you explain that?
Yeah, what is Cremo?
Well, he says it shows the limitations of our evolutionary model.
Okay.
He even questions the
Yeah.
dating methods we use.
So he
He says they're not as accurate as we think.
so we can't trust any, I wouldn't say
Scientific
dating, we can't trust any.
Okay.
But it's a good reminder that
Okay.
they're not perfect.
Right.
Like there's assumptions,
Yeah.
interpretations.
You know, contamination can mess things up.
So we have to take it all
Yeah.
with a grain of salt.
You got to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, it makes you wonder
Right.
what else is out there that
Yeah.
maybe we've just ignored
Right.
because it doesn't fit.
Or misidentified.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this one case he talks about in Illinois
Okay.
back in the 1840s.
Mm-hmm.
These miners found a whole human skeleton
Okay.
in a coal mine,
Okay.
like embedded in a coal seam.
Uh-huh.
That's estimated to be
How old?
over 300 million years old.
300 million years.
Yeah.
So that's like way before
Way before dinosaurs.
dinosaurs.
Yeah, Carboniferous, period.
Wow.
Like finding a computer in a Viking settlement, totally out of place.
Whatever happened to that
Oh.
skeleton?
It's kind of murky,
Really?
the details.
Okay.
But Cremo uses it as an example of how things get
Yeah.
sidelined
Yeah.
when they don't fit.
They don't fit the narrative.
Right.
Okay, so then he brings up Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Is he serious? Like,
Yeah.
is he saying Bigfoot's real?
He's not saying it definitively,
Okay.
but he's saying it's worth considering.
Right.
Like, what if
Yeah.
these creatures are real
Yeah.
and they're like descendants of ancient hominids
Okay.
that survived to modern times?
I mean, people swear
Yeah, there's lots.
they've seen Bigfoot
eyewitness accounts.
footprints even.
Footprints.
But I've always been skeptical.
I mean,
Where's the bones?
right.
Where's the DNA?
That's what the skeptics say.
Yeah.
But Cremo says,
Yeah.
just because we haven't found it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's not there.
Okay.
He compares it to the coelacanth,
Okay.
that fish everyone thought was extinct,
Right.
but then it showed up.
Alive and well.
Yeah, back in the 30s.
Okay. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay. But even if Bigfoot is real,
Right.
how does that
Well, he's saying that all these things together,
Bigfoot?
the archaeological stuff,
Yeah.
it all points to a much more complex history of life than we acknowledge.
So he's not saying it's all definitely true?
Not definitively,
Okay.
but he wants us to be open.
To be open to the possibility.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is. but it is intriguing.
It's like he's opening up
Yeah.
a whole new way of looking.
A whole new way of looking at the world.
Yeah. And what's possible.
Yeah, like an intellectual adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it starts with questioning.
Questioning everything.
Yeah. Our assumptions.
Okay.
And being willing to explore the unknown.
Okay, so if we accept that, even for a minute, that the story of human evolution might be a lot more complicated than we thought.
More mysterious.
Yeah, for sure. What does that mean for us?
Well,
like, how does that change?
It makes you wonder.
How we see the world.
If what we know is incomplete. Cremo talks about the universe as this indivisible whole where the observer is a part of it all.
A part of the whole.
It sounds kind of spiritual.
Yeah.
Like we're all connected.
Yeah, maybe it's not that far-fetched. I mean, quantum physics says we're all interconnected anyway.
At a subatomic level.
Right. And a lot of ancient traditions say the same thing.
So if we are all connected, what does that mean for
well, it means
our responsibility?
Our actions have consequences.
It's not just about me.
No, we're not isolated. We're all part of this.
Part of this web.
Yeah, this tapestry.
Our choices.
It's our beliefs.
Even our thoughts matter.
They affect everything.
It's like we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
You know?
We've got to work together.
To reach safe harbor.
Exactly.
Cooperation.
Cooperation.
Not competition.
Right.
That's the key.
Okay, so Cremo says we need to
move beyond the limits of our current worldviews.
Both East and West?
Yeah.
He says the West is too focused on analysis.
Like we've become disconnected.
Yeah, from nature, from each other.
But the East sometimes lacks the
scientific
rigor.
Yeah, the rigor.
Okay, so we need
He's calling for a blend.
Okay.
A synthesis.
Of East and West.
Yeah.
Of science and spirituality.
Yeah.
Of logic and intuition.
Yeah.
That's a tall order. Where do we even begin?
I think it starts with questioning our own assumptions.
Yeah.
Stepping outside our comfort zones, being open to new ideas.
Okay. So what's the biggest takeaway? The biggest takeaway.
For the listener.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
To question everything.
To question everything.
Yeah. Dig deeper. Explore different ideas.
Yeah.
Trust your gut.
Okay, so we're not just passive recipients.
We create of information.
Our own understanding.
We create our own understanding. Okay, and Cremo seems to suggest that we're capable of.
Oh, way more.
So much more.
Than we realize.
And we realize, he talks about this untapped potential.
Hidden abilities.
Yeah.
A future we can't even imagine.
That's exciting.
It is.
Right.
How do we...
That's the question.
Tap into that potential.
Right? Like, is it something we have?
Oh, yeah.
Or do we develop it?
It's like we've got this map to buried treasure, but we can't quite read it yet.
It's like it's in a different language.
Yeah. How do we even unlock that potential?
Well, Cremo compares it to caterpillars turning into butterflies.
Okay.
And he talks about these imaginal cells inside the caterpillar.
Yeah, those little groups of cells.
Right. They've got the blueprint.
They have the instructions.
Yeah, for the butterfly.
Yeah, for the wings, the legs.
Everything.
All the new stuff. Yeah, while the rest of the caterpillar
is basically dissolving.
Is breaking down these imaginal cells.
Are quietly
building the butterfly.
The new creature.
Wow, that's such a good metaphor.
And Cremo says maybe humans are going through.
We're like the caterpillar.
Kind of. I says these cultural creatives.
Okay, so like artists, visionaries, people coming up with new ideas.
They're like those imaginal cells for society.
So even with all the craziness going on in the world right now,
even with the chaos,
there's still hope for change.
Yeah, like a positive transformation.
Like those little imaginal cells.
Yeah.
Just waiting.
Building something new.
To make the butterfly.
While the old stuff falls apart.
And he specifically mentions young people.
Yeah, as a source of hope.
A big part of that.
He sees them as more open to new ideas.
They're not so stuck. Yeah, not so set in their ways.
In the old ways.
And more willing to challenge things.
Yeah. I've always thought young people, they just see things.
Yeah, they see things differently.
With fresh eyes.
Yeah.
They see possibilities.
It reminds me of that Einstein quote.
What's that?
You know, we can't solve problems with the same thinking that created them.
Oh, yeah.
So we need that fresh perspective to come up with new solutions.
So how do we encourage these?
Yeah. How do we nurture
imaginal cells?
in ourselves.
And young people.
I think it starts with encouraging curiosity.
Okay.
Critical thinking.
Yeah.
And that willingness to question.
To question everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to make spaces.
Safe spaces.
Where it's okay.
Yeah, where it's okay.
To be wrong.
To make mistakes.
To change your mind.
To experiment.
Yeah, like that's where
growth happens.
Real growth happens.
That's where innovation comes from.
And connecting with things that inspire us.
Yes.
Like nature and art.
Art.
Music.
Music, nature. Yeah. Anything that sparks.
That makes you feel a sense of wonder.
Oh.
Yeah, like remembering.
Like being a kid again.
Yeah, that the world is
full of wonder.
Magical and mysterious.
Full of possibilities.
Yeah.
That we haven't even discovered yet.
This has been a really
mind-blowing
deep dive.
It has.
Primo's work.
Yeah.
It's really challenged.
It makes you rethink
everything.
Everything.
About human history.
About reality.
About who we are.
Our potential.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It has.
But in a good way.
In a good way.
It's made me feel hopeful.
Me too.
Knowing that there are people out there like Cremo
who are pushing the boundaries.
Asking these big questions.
What's the takeaway?
So what can our listeners do?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to question it.
Don't be afraid to question.
Everything.
Everything.
Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Look for different perspectives.
Trust your gut.
Yeah.
You're not just
along for the ride.
Yeah, you're creating your own.
You're creating
understanding.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of
small things.
Small actions.
Every act of kindness.
Every time you choose.
Yeah.
Curiosity over fear.
Cooperation instead of competition.
You're making the world.
You're making a difference.
A better place.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more.
Yeah.
Check out the source materials.
All that stuff that we talked about.
And we talked about.
You might be surprised what you find.
This has been a really amazing.
It has been a journey.
Deep dive.
Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed it.
We hope it's made you think.
And that it's inspired you.
And question.
Your own assumptions.
Everything.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.